If you're looking for a gimbal that's going to give you everything you need at a great price point, lightweight, and is small enough that it's not going to take up a ton of space in your camera bag, then the Weebill 3S from Zhiyun might be the right option for you. So today we're going to look at this gimbal, see what it can do, and if this might be the gimbal that you need.
We about to change the game, we out here taking names, let our voices rise, let them reach the sky. We about to change the game, we out here taking names, let our voices rise, let them reach the sky.
So first off, just a quick disclaimer about this gimbal and this review. Zhiyun did reach out to me and send this to me for the purposes of doing a review, but I didn't get paid anything. They don't have any say over what I say in this video or about this gimbal. Having said all of that, I have also been a fan of what they do with the Weebill series of gimbals ever since the first Weebill S was released. And I was super excited to get my hands on this gimbal when they reached out to me and be able to test it out for myself and tell you guys what I think about it and what I was able to do with this gimbal. So the Weebill 3S comes in just the basic package, which really gives you everything you need to use the gimbal and get great stable footage out of this. But then there's also the 3S combo, which includes a handle and weight to be able to more comfortably, I would say, do the underslung mode, because you can absolutely do more underslung type of shots without having the extra handle, but it does definitely give more comfortable experience, especially if you have a heavier camera and lens combo on there. And the combo also comes with actually a really nice, really cool carrying case that I am definitely going to be using for maybe even just my basic camera setup on a regular basis, because that carrying case is actually a really nice bag. All right, so let's jump into my thoughts and experiences with this gimbal. So the Weebill 3S and the Weebill S line in general is really the more lightweight, compact style of gimbal that they offer. And it's more meant for like mirrorless cameras, that type of setup, than something like a larger cinema camera. Having said that, with my mirrorless setup, which I'm using an R6 primarily, I was not able to find a lens combination that I had available, at least, that it didn't work with and work well with. Even with my 100mm macro lens, which is not the heaviest lens in the world, but it is a pretty long lens, which makes the balance then kind of awkward, I was still able to balance it just fine. And the cool thing about the Weebill 3S is you can do this in like horizontal mode or vertical mode with the gimbal, and I was able to do that with the 100mm macro on my R6 in both modes without any issues. So I think for mirrorless shooters looking again for a lightweight, smaller option, this is going to handle pretty much everything that you can throw at it. Getting the gimbal set up is super easy. There are 3 lock buttons, so you can lock it in a storage and travel mode and then unlock it and set it up to be able to balance the camera already. And then once you turn it on, after you have it pretty much balanced, you can turn it on and there's an auto tune feature that will tune the gimbal to the weight and balance of your camera, and that will help keep it just that extra bit of steady as you're filming. So that was always the setup for me in using this gimbal. I would balance it myself quickly, do the auto tune, which only takes less than a minute, I would say, and then ready to go and getting great stable footage right off the bat. The controls on the Weebill 3S are super intuitive and easy to use. You have a joystick to control where the camera is pointing, up and down, left and right, and then you have a scroll wheel to adjust the angle of the camera. Now, you can't do like a complete 360 with that scroll wheel on the angle of the camera to do like spirals and crazy stuff like that, but just for your basic like level changes and that kind of thing, it works great and it's super responsive. As far as ergonomics and how the gimbal feels while you're using it, I really enjoyed it. I think it's designed really well. First of all, there is a tripod leg attachment that comes even in the base version of this gimbal, and that makes it super easy to set the gimbal up, first of all, while you're balancing, and then as you're doing shots and maybe you have to move something or in between shots, you can just sit the gimbal down on the tripod. That for me is just an absolute necessity for any gimbal that's going to be in any way usable, is to have that kind of tripod leg. It also allows you to set up the camera on the gimbal and use something like the tracking feature that's connected to the autofocus, so you can basically use the gimbal as a tripod as well. So if you're on the move and you need to be able to get some handheld B-roll shots, but also need some like maybe talking head type of shots, then this is a great option, because this gimbal can be your tripod for that, which is not necessarily the way that it's best going to be used as just a tripod. But if you need that in addition to also getting some really smooth handheld shots, then it makes it easy. You don't have to break down the gimbal and take the camera off the gimbal and then rebalance it in between every shot if you're switching back and forth. Again, you have the ability to switch between shooting in a horizontal mode like this and vertical mode for something like social media. And I was able to shoot some content both in horizontal and vertical modes, and it is a really easy switch. There are basically two different mounting brackets on the plate that you're going to connect to your camera and then slide that on the gimbal arm. And all you have to do is connect it on one way for the horizontal mode and connect it the other way if you're shooting vertical. And it's as simple as that. Then the rest of it is just balancing the gimbal one way or the other, and you're good to go. So it's really easy and simple, and it's also very easy to switch between horizontal and vertical if you're trying to get coverage for maybe something like YouTube and then something like social media, Instagram, TikTok, something like that, at the same time or on the same day. It's really easy to switch back and forth. Obviously, anytime that you switch between horizontal and vertical, you will have to rebalance the gimbal, but outside of that, it's a very quick and easy process. Again, if you get the Weebill 3S combo that comes with the extra handle as well as a counterweight balance, and if you are going to shoot a lot in like an underslung mode, or you just are going to be carrying it around a lot and you're not as worried about cutting down on the weight and being able to maybe strap it on the back of your camera bag and keep the whole setup very small, I think it's a really good option. And again, especially if you're shooting a lot of stuff underslung, it is much more comfortable that way. It's not uncomfortable without it. But if you're shooting for a long time, especially someone like me, I'd have to worry about my back and stuff like that on a longer shoot day. This is going to make that a lot more comfortable, just better ergonomics. It's also a very simple setup. There is a quick attachment plate that goes on the bottom of the gimbal, and that slides in and out of that handle and counterweight setup. And so it's really easy to go back and forth between using that and then taking it off. It's just one button and you slide out the quick attachment plate. So if you are going to really be using this gimbal a lot, if you're going to do a lot of shooting with a gimbal, I would definitely suggest go with a combo. You get that extra handle. And again, the bag that comes with this is really nice and something that I'm definitely going to be using a lot. Even probably using the bottom compartment of it as a space for my camera setup, and then having the gimbal in the top. So what are my final thoughts on this Weebill 3S? As you've heard throughout the video, I like it a lot. So I've said a lot of positive things. The kind of big con that you have to take into consideration is how heavy is your camera setup. If you're using something like a larger full-size cinema camera, this is definitely not going to be the setup for you. If you're using a mirrorless camera or a cinema camera like the Canon R5C or the Sony FX3, FX30, something like that, that is in more of a mirrorless style body, mirrorless style form factor, then I don't think you'll realistically run into issues unless you are mounting some really, really big cinema glass on the front of that. But outside of that, if you're getting something to shoot with your mirrorless camera setup, I really think this is one of the best options out there at this price point. Again, I love the form factor. The functionality of it is great. The price point is great. And as far as usability goes, I really haven't had any issues at all. And that's a pretty big step, because earlier gimbals, you could run into like buggy firmware things, that kind of stuff. And I haven't had any of that with this gimbal, so I've been super happy with it. So I think, again, it comes down to what's your budget and how big is the setup that you're trying to use on this. And if this fits your budget and you are using it for a mirrorless setup, I think it is hard to beat this option. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about this gimbal? Is this something that you're looking at, something that you're interested in? If so, why or why not? If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button so that you can get notified of all the videos that I make on this channel as they come out. Also, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Thanks, see ya.